Yo, good morning everybody. Hope you guys doing great like 5 lakes and no mistakes today. Danilo Caprick here, back at it with another video around tech sales. And today we're gonna answer a very specific question. And the question is gonna be, how do I prepare for my interview for a tech sales role? So I know a lot of you guys have been taking a look at tech sales. I see even just on Google search trends, different data points, but I think it's fair to say that more people now than ever are interested in getting into tech sales. So with people applying, looking at different things, what are the actual steps that you should take to maximize your chances for success? And what I'll do in this video is share with you guys during my tech sales journey, what have I done to prepare for interviews and be able to land jobs at top tier companies like Gartner, New Relic, and Databricks. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, guys, so when it comes to preparing for your interview, there's a couple of kind of standard things I believe everybody should do. Number one, you want to research the executive team. And why on earth do you want to research the executive team? Because you want to come into the interview with a sense of what's important to the company. And an easy way to differentiate yourself from all other applicants is to have a sense, or at least a hypothesis, some kind of idea about what the company is focused on. And the reason that's going to help you stand out is because during the interview conversations, whether you're talking to a recruiter or a manager, whoever it might be, you're going to be able to say, oh yeah, I saw that podcast where Jeff talked about wanting to increase sales by 30% at the end of 2023. And if you're able to say something like that and reference something that one of their executives mentioned, you automatically come across as way more credible, someone who's well prepared, done their research, and you're gonna get a look for that. So that's the first thing I highly recommend everybody do, is research the executive team. And probably the easiest way to do that is go on LinkedIn, find out what they're posting about, what they're liking. And if they're not on LinkedIn, just Google search their name, see what comes up. You might find a podcast, you might find an interview, you might find a press release where they spoke and had a quote. But if you can find out what's important to the executive team and you can relay that you know that information during the interview, oh gosh, it's like music to their ears. They'd love it. So that's the first thing I highly recommend doing. You gotta but look into the executive team and what's important to them. Okay, that's step number one. All right, so step number two, what you wanna do is obviously have an understanding of what the company does. And this can be a little bit difficult in tech, especially if you're coming in with no experience and you're not sure what, some of these words might mean, like cloud or API or whatever the jargon is. But obviously the way to do this, a very easy way I think, is to read something called the customer case studies that they have on their website. And these are very, very popular documents. I don't know of any tech company that does not feature case studies on their website. I think if they don't have case studies on their website, don't apply there. You don't want to go there. Probably means they don't have customers or customers who are willing to be references. So anyways, that's the second thing I highly recommend doing, is looking at the customer case studies. And we want to do this because if we read customer case studies, we're going to be able to learn what kind of outcomes is that company generating for its customers. And for example, let's just say we read a case study and we saw that they helped a company increase revenue by 10%. If we now understand what the company is helping its customers do, that again just allows us to be more intelligent in the interview process, right? If they ask us, so what do you know about our company? Well, I saw that you actually worked with XYZ company and you guys did this, and that resulted in a 10% increase in revenue. So based on that, my understanding is that you guys operate as a right? And you just recite what you've learned from the case study. So that's why I think case studies are super powerful. It gives you a very specific story that you can reference during the interview process. And again, it just showcases how prepared you are, that you did your research, and it's going to separate you from other applicants. So definitely check out the customer case studies. Make sure you understand what the company does and what are the outcomes that they are helping their customers produce, okay? So that's the second thing I highly recommend doing. All right, now number three, the third thing that you should really consider doing is having some questions prepared for every interview. And this sounds like a very basic step, but you would be absolutely shocked by the amount of people who fail to ask questions. And it's almost ridiculous, because just imagine if you're meeting with anyone on the planet to talk about any topic that could ever be discussed, and you're simply listening the whole time. listening, and you're answering questions that they might ask you. And then they say, okay, do you have anything for me? And you're like, no, I don't. It's almost like a little slap in the face. It's almost like, wow, like I've invested all this time talking to you and you don't have a single question for us or for me. So I think it's basic respect, number one. So that's the first thing to mention. But again, it's going to help you stand out. And depending on what questions you ask, it will also showcase your curiosity. And that's really important because in tech sales, people love to see sales reps that are curious, right? A lot of our job is asking good questions, asking thought-provoking questions, and asking questions that get us the information that we need to close a sale. So if you come in and you don't ask a single question, it's almost like, why would we hire this person? They're not curious at all. They didn't ask us a single question. What are they gonna do when they talk to our clients on the phone? Just ask nothing, right? So it's a bad look, typically speaking, to not ask questions. So make sure that you prepare and come around with some questions. One of my favorite questions to ask in an interview process is at the very beginning, when I'm able to, depending how the recruiter runs the call, I might say something like, hey, what are some of the top attributes and characteristics that you look for somebody in this role, or that you look for in the ideal applicant for this role? And they might say, well, we look for someone who's ambitious, we look for someone with a track record of success, and we look for someone who is really curious and good at asking questions. And maybe they're fast on their feet, whatever it might be. So you hold that in your head, you remember what they said, or you write it down if they talk. And at the very end, when they say, do you have any more questions for me? Or right before it ends, this is key. Right before it ends, you say, hey, at the beginning of the call, you mentioned that the ideal applicant for this role has X, Y, Z, and Q. I know we've had a short conversation today, but based on what I've shared with you in our conversation, how adequately or how well have I demonstrated those attributes to you today on our call? And every single time I've asked this question, people pause and they're like, wow, it makes them think, and it makes them reflect on the conversation for a minute, and it makes them say, well, yeah, actually, I think you check the box on this, and it's a great opportunity for them to point out any concerns, right? And this is going to immediately let you know how they kind of view you as an applicant. So I highly recommend at the beginning of the call asking, hey, what are the ideal attributes and characteristics you look for? And then right before it ends, you come back to that and you say, hey, at the beginning of the call, you said this. How well have I demonstrated those attributes today? And that's also going to show that you're listening to what they say, that you were able to take that information, turn it into a question at the end, and hold on to it the whole time. That's showing patience, that's showing thoughtfulness, and that's showing curiosity. So in addition to getting you some feedback at the end, it also kind of showcases a little bit of your sales acumen. So highly recommend that. And that's probably one of my favorite questions to ask, something I've done throughout my career at all the companies I've ever interviewed with. So highly recommend that step as well. All right, so now let's get to the fourth thing that I highly recommend you do when you are preparing for your sales interview or tech sales interview. And what you should do is, it's kind of broad, but we'll get into it in some more specifics, but you should really get to master your story. And what I mean by that is everybody has a narrative that shares kind of how they got to where they are right now and what they hope to do in the future. So for example, my personal narrative that I have shared over the years is that, hey, my story kind of starts in 2012. Unfortunately, I had a quite drastic event happen in my family where my father unexpectedly passed away. And after that moment, it was 2012, I was in college at the time, and I was really looking for a way to find some money and help my family after I graduate. After that, I stumbled into my first tech sales role, and ever since then, my goal has been to, retire my mom and help my family really maintain financial stability in a way that we've never had. And so that's why I'm in tech sales today, and that's why I want to get into enterprise sales where I can sell $1 million deals to companies like Coca-Cola and McDonald's, because that's going to help me fulfill my goal and my destiny and my obligation to my family. So that is a very strong story that I share, and it's strong because it's true. I have conviction when I talk about it, and I'm able to reference it because it's my life, it's real life. So everyone should really be concerned on the story they're telling. And outside of your personal story, you should also kind of have a story around why that company, why exactly this company. So for me, if I'm interviewing for, let's say, a sales role at Amazon Web Services, my thing is going to be, hey, I want to join this company because based on my research, the average deal size and the types of companies you guys are selling to are the types of companies that I want to work with. I want to work with those companies because my goal is to make 7-figure, 6-figure commission checks to help my family and make sure that they can retire comfortably. I feel like AWS is a place where I can do that. Thus, why I'm interested here and why I've done all my research and come prepared today. So again, it doesn't have to be about money. This is just my narrative that I'm telling you guys, but have a narrative as to why the company you're interviewing for is right for you and how does being a part of their company align to your future goals? How is it going to help you as an individual? If you have a very clear story on that, again, you separate yourself from the pack, you come across very compelling and very convicted, it's going to leave an impression on anyone who's listening to you. And I promise you, they're not going to forget those stories, especially if it's true. If you can tell something that's true, that's really deep to you and meaningful, again, guys, it's really going to separate you from the pack and put you in an ideal position to land the role of your dreams. So overall, let's recap. I mentioned number one, that you should check out what the executives care about. So make sure you find out who the executives are. That's just as simple as a Google search. Hey, who is the CEO of this company, right? And then find out who they are. Check them out on LinkedIn, see what they're posting about, what they like, and check out if they're on any podcast interviews, things like that, okay? Second thing we said to do was come prepared with questions, right? Make sure that you have some questions so that way you can show that you're being curious and again, separate yourself from the pack by asking some unique questions. The third thing we mentioned doing is taking a look at the customer case studies, right? We want to look at the customer case studies so that way we can reference what the company does and we have a clear understanding of the outcomes that the company is helping their clients produce, okay? And the last thing that we want to do that I just mentioned is around, hold on, wait for it, have your story right, okay? So having the story is around having your personal narrative around why this company, what is your why for tech sales, and just making sure that you can articulate that in a very concise but compelling way and put some emotion to it, especially if it's something real and personal to your life, if it involves family, if it involves you getting to a certain state, definitely show that emotion there too. So overall, those are the steps I highly recommend taking to prepare for your next interview in tech sales. And again, if you follow these things, I have no doubt in my mind that you will end up where you want to be. And it might take a little bit of practice, right? But if you do this over time, you're going to get really good at interviewing and you're going to be, again, kind of an expert in separating yourself from the pack. So I hope you guys enjoyed this content. If you did like this video today, please click the subscribe button and stay tuned for the next piece of content. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing day. Let's get it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.